Hi, so I wanted to show how to use some of the tools that I use most frequently, and I listed them here, and there's hyperlinks to each of the functions and named them in red here. So over here, I have a list of states with their abbreviation, capitals, and regions. This tool here groups and ungroups them just so that you can more easily hide information without actually hiding the columns or rows. And then this is my information about, let's say, sales group. So everything in yellow is what I've filled out. So I used XLOOKUP to populate what region is associated with this state. Here I made a unique list of the regions. I created a data validation drop-down list based off this unique group list. And then I used SUMIFS to say, add up the amount of the people who are in that specific group and in this specific region. I made a pivot table of the data, and I made this map, which highlights basically which states have the most income. So let's go through on how to actually do those formulas. Okay, so XLOOKUP is basically to say, look up something in this column and tell me what the answer is in a different column. Okay, so I want to look up CT in this range here. And if you hit F4, you'll see right here, those will add $signs. That'll mean when I drag this formula down, it'll continue looking at rows 9 through 58. It won't shift them down. The same thing for what region that's in. I'm going to do the same thing and then close the parentheses to be done with that. I always put this at the beginning of every formula. I put if error. So right after the equal sign, you put if error, and then parentheses, and then at the very end of whatever your formula was, you just put comma, and then whatever you want the answer to be if it can't be found. So either you might want it to be 0, or you might want it to be blank. So in this case, I just want it to be blank. So I'm going to do 2 quotation marks next to each other, and then close the parenthesis and hit enter. So if you double click that, it'll populate all the cells below that. Then I'm going to do the same thing to look up the name of the state. To conditional format this, you just highlight whatever it is you want to conditional format. You go to the Home tab, click on conditional formatting, and then you can format it however you want. So the color scales look cool. You can say like if green is the best or green is the worst. Hover over them without clicking on them. You'll kind of see what they would look like to see which one makes the most sense that you might want. Okay, so now I want a map to show me sales were in each state. So I'm just going to go to insert and then under charts maps and then filled map. And that's what I did here. If you wanted to change the colors on the chart design tab up here, you could change, I think if you hover over these, it'll show you what they would look like. Yeah, these are all people in group A, B, or C, but I just want one list of the unique letters that are in that group. So you just say unique, and then you highlight what it is you want unique values of, close parenthesis, and that's it. So, and then it'll automatically populate as many rows down as there are unique cells in that range. So I want to say add up all of the sales for each of these regions. So SUMIF is if you only have one condition. So all I want to say is just if they're Northeast, then add them all up. So you just say SUMIF. The range, I'm looking here. And again, I'm going to do F4 because I want this range to stay the same. Then I'm going to do comma. Is it that I want it, what I want it to look for? So I want it to look for whatever's here with no number signs because I want that to keep moving. And then what is the range that I want to add up? And then a parenthesis to end it. Want to use data validation, which is basically to make a drop-down list, and I want to base it off of these unique values over here. I go to the data tab, and over here, data validation. From the drop-down list, I pick list, and it's asking me what is the list. Like you can either, I could type in A, B, C, I could do that, or you can actually link it to cells. So I'm going to do that instead. So I'm going to say this is the range that I want you to be able to choose from. Say okay. And so now I can choose from those. So I'm going to pick group A. Anytime you want to combine text and a cell, you need to start with the quotation. So filtered by group. And then now I want to connect it to that cell. So I'm going to do quotations, and sign, parentheses, and click on that. And then do the same thing in the reverse order and continue typing whatever I want. So say only, and then to end the entire string of text, you end it with quotation. So then I hit enter. So region filtered by group A. So now I want to only make a unique list of the regions for the ones that are in group A. So you start with the same function of unique, and then you add a filter. So first we're going to say what it is that we ultimately want to have the unique list of, which would be the regions. And then we're saying comma by filtering what. So I'm going to say anything in this group that equals this cell. And then close both those. SUMIFS is if you want multiple conditions. SUMIFS. So we're starting with, this is different because it's starting with what is the actual range that you want to add up. So I'm going to say sales if, and then what are my conditions? So I want to say if anything here, F4, and then the criteria equals what's in this cell here. And then my second criteria is if anyone in the group, and then F4 that matches this group here. And then just close the parenthesis. So now it's adding up how much met both of those criteria. If I change this group A, it will create the filter, the unique list that was filtered. So the regions by group A, and then added up how much meet both those criteria. So if you go to the insert tab and click pivot table on the far left, it automatically, like since I was in there, it assumed that this is probably what I want to make a pivot table of. Just know you need a heading for every single column. Any blank columns that don't have a heading, it'll give you an error message. So you can either make a pivot table go onto a new sheet, or you can choose somewhere on the sheet that you're on where you want it to be. So I'm going to just put it right here. I'm going to say, okay. You organize it, add it up by region. I'm going to say I want a list of regions and then how much sales were in those. I'm going to move regions to the columns box. So now I'm putting my regions across top, and now maybe I want the actual list of states. So I'm going to grab states and put them listed as rows. So then it can kind of show me like two pieces of data in different directions. So I just had a list of all these names. So I can't really like do anything with them because they're not filtered. So if I highlight them all and go to data and then filter, now all these drop downs that give me options. So I could more easily like say what I wanted to do. So for example, say I want to sort or filter these only by regions and I only want the ones that are in the Northeast. Then it's going to show me only the ones that are in the Northeast. So that's how you use filter. And then if you want to turn the filter off, you just unclick back on the button. So I put hyperlinks to all of these things. So I right click on this at the very bottom, it says link, which means hyperlink. So I can link it to a different place in this document. So you can pick which tab you want it on and what cell you want it on. So say I want it to be on this tab and I want it to be in cell, let's say H1. So put H1, say okay. Then it'll turn blue and it'll be underlined. So if you click on it, it'll now take me to that cell. So hope you found this helpful.